and competing and going and competing and putting this much time and effort into something, one, it shows they enjoy it, which is fantastic, but also it's just dedication, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like, so many people have to say a year of tryharding in Hearthstone would probably be like, okay, you know, maybe it's not for me, whatever. But they keep at it, and they're amazing players, and, you know, it's paying off for them very early on this year, because players aren't only playing for, you know, 15,000 prize pool, actually playing for probably the most important prize, which is HCT points for this year, which is absolutely everything. It has a knock-on effect to everything these players do. But let's kick off game number one. It's going to be Hunterace's Priest versus the Zoo from Bozzzton.
Yep. A little bit off the wall to bring Zoo to this tournament. I believe there was 3 in total of different varieties, with everyone else favoring the Control Warlock or the Q Block, which, you know, you would have expected to an overwhelming percentage of players to bring a slower Warlock to the tournament, considering it's pretty much by far and away considered the best deck in the game right now by most people, or at least the best class, the best archetype in the game, or however you want to put it. But a few players did just go off the wall and bring Zoo, and it seems like it might have been a smart choice, because it puts you in a position where you actually get to play Warlock. Warlock obviously very powerful, and the deck itself is actually performing. You know, whenever you see a tournament like this that is perhaps fresh meta, or someone has found something to kind of break the meta, do something a bit different, as soon as the deck lists get published, people usually start trying it out on ladder. And that's been the case as well. Suddenly Zoo is, you know, being tweeted out top performances from, you know, Muzzy saying he's performed very, very well with Zoo recently as well. So it seems like Zoo might have been one of those decks that didn't quite catch on day one of the new expansion, but we might be seeing a lot more of it going forward.
I think as well, especially in this tournament when Warlock is at such a powerful rate in the Control and Cube versions, no one's bringing a lineup that beats Zoo as well, right? So although you might have a lineup that's okay versus aggro in general, no one's probably even considered trying to beat Zoo or even thinking about it. So it opens up like you exist in a weird state in the tournament metagame where everyone's presumed and worked around Cube and Control Lock, and then you just have a completely different lineup, that their ban will be different. Their overall strategy might look different because you're playing that Zoo list.
Yeah, and I think also the people who have gone very aggressive with Zoo as part of their lineup, like gone quad aggro, if you want to use that phrase, they've kind of suspected that there's going to be some very slow decks in the tournament. You know, like a lot of players I've spoken to, you know, had the same inkling that I did, that like 1 or 2 people might try some kind of Mimi quest lineup to counter out some of the control decks that way. And then suddenly it comes full circle, where if people are getting too silly and starting to play like Quest Rogue, they're like, well, guess what, idiot? I play minions and hit you in the face, and then your quest really isn't getting too far. Yep. But despite that not being the case, we're still seeing Zoo perform quite well.
And just catching up to this game, obviously, the first couple of turns have gone, but it's a fairly standard opening for Bozzzton, at least, getting all his early drops onto the board. Hunterace just getting some value out of that Cleric, healing up the Imp, just knowing the value of the card draw, and also knowing healing up that Flame Imp should be relatively safe because there is a Dustbreaker for next turn. Blood Fury Potion can change that, though.
Yeah, that's the problem that arises, right? Is your opponent can put you in a position where Duskbreaker is a bad play, and look at the reaction from Hunterace there. It wasn't much, but it was a little smirk that said, yeah, you got me. My Duskbreaker is pretty bad now.
Also, it just allowed the trade. The Imp didn't receive the potion, but it had the trade into the Cleric. It's still on board. And you're probably not playing Duskbreaker this turn, so the Imp survives even longer. So a little bit punished for that heal, but it's still card draw.
Yeah, fortunes did change just a little bit, though, very, very rapidly, because that silence pickup off the top now does really remove a lot of the pressure from the board, especially since, of course, 0 mana. It can just be paired with the Duskbreaker. Then Hunterace would technically be in charge of the board with a 3-3 remaining against a 2-1.
I wonder whether he wants more from the Duskbreaker now, though. There's some small things he could do. He could play Twilight Acolyte on the Void Lord, just to steal the attack, so then it trades up with all these mins, and then could even silence the Void Lord later, or even that turn if he really wanted to, just to be able to just really pile on the pressure a little bit later and stick a big minion. But it does work out that silence and Dustbreaker is enough. We've seen a lot of players be greedy with Dustbreaker in this tournament, but not Hunterace this time.
Yeah, and I think I agree with it, and I see the logic. He's just, you know, potentially curving out from this position. Sure, he can't play Draconid Operative just yet if he wants to get full value from it, but he's playing against Zoo, so getting full value from it isn't a huge concern because the Zoo cards aren't great for you on the whole. And even if that doesn't happen, well, he has Acolyte and Radiant Elemental and Power Word Shield and such that he can use to start really like pushing back onto the board. Yeah.
Yeah. That Elemental really kind of opens up the place for the following turn, no matter what Hunterace decides.
This is looking like old school Zoo right now.
Yeah, play the 1-drops.
Yeah, this was 2014, 2015 Zoo all over. Play 2 1-drops, tap, play 2 1-drops, tap, play 2 1-drops. That was the deck.
It really was, wasn't it, actually? Are we going to see the Veteran come down? Yeah, the Veteran come down there to trade off the Dustbreaker.
Yeah, it has to be done. When you're Zoo this early on in the matchup, you have to avoid your opponent taking value trades. That's what
you're supposed to do.
Right. This was the classic mark of like the bad Zoo player back in the day, is that they would think it was an aggro deck and hit face, and then just try and draw Soulfire and Leroy Soulfire and Doomguard and end the game. Well, that's not how the deck worked. The deck worked by putting small things, buffing small things into big things, and then you still have things left over. And that incremental progress throughout the game just let you dominate.
Definitely a lot of things. This Howlfiend, I was just about to say, what Bozzzton's missing out this whole hand now is discard mechanic.
Yeah.
He has 2 Malkazar Imp and now Clutch Mother, but the Howlfiend is going to be a nice follow-up. But Bozzzton doesn't want to drop it down just yet. He wants to get both Malkazar's Imps down, put everything on the board. And this works twofold. One, it gets the maximum draw out going forward in the game. It gets usage out of these 1-drops, and also has a much higher chance of Clutch Mother being discarded and getting rebuffed.
Right. Important play, by the way. Make sure you freeze that Anduin face.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to make all the difference.
I still think there's a Dragon Soul deck somewhere. I played against that once when the expansion came out, and a guy absolutely ruined me with it. It was insane. Just kept making 5/5s, and then kept even Psychic Screaming 5/5s back into my deck. because he just never let me do anything. Because all his deck was tons of removal.
Sure.
And just never let me do anything until I was drawing 1 card a turn, and then he would just be like, yeah, okay, more 5/5s. Enjoy.
All right, well, now life's getting interesting. There's an Inner Fire, there's the Shadow Visions.
And there's a second Radiant as well.
Yep.
There's a Divine Spirit. You've seen both the freezes as well, which is pretty huge.
Right. You can go Power Word Shield then. Talon Priest as well now. I was going to say, yeah, I think second Radiant just has to get committed to the board here, just so you have enough diversity of attacks to be able to answer this board next turn. You are down to 1 Duskbreaker in your deck, and then obviously your Nether Spites that can pick up some more, but looks like you might have to fight honestly card for card with this board for a while.
Yeah, this is really nice from Bozzzton as well. That Librarian is huge. They have to play the Howlfiend to just front load the discard and put a big minion on the board. But also just this Librarian will cycle the Clutch Mother guaranteed, draw another card, and draw 2 more cards because of the 2 imps on the board. That's when discard is done correctly.
Oh, yeah. And this was the story of the last game we saw Bozzzton play with Zoo as well. Like, everything lined up perfectly, yes. Even down to the Silverware Golem and Doomguard to end the game, where the double summon buffed his Darkshire Councilman for lethal.
Yeah, exact. Oof. Work out now how many attacks and where he wants to put them, right? Because as much as you can say, oh, let's kill the 2 elementals if possible, well, there's still an operative on the board. So it still gets a little bit dicey.
And there's still one of the Radiant Elementals, aside from it being a Radiant Elemental, is a 7 health minion. And 7 can turn into 20 very quickly. Yeah, just like that, in fact. That was the fear. Leaving 7 health on, suddenly, this is maths that you have to get used to very quickly. 7 goes to 20 very easily with Cabal, Talon Priest, Divine Spirit, Inner Fire, and you were below that number. So it wasn't an unlikely combination of cards that left you suffering in that position. Of course, Hunterace was fortunate to be able to pick up that piece that he needed, but you have to wonder, could he maybe have just poked some 1/3s into the 2/7 just to lower the damage down, left one of the other minions up instead? These are all considerations that you have to go through when playing against the Dragon Priest.
Yeah, it's a very, very difficult deck to play around for a lot in a lot of matchups, because there's some decks that can deal with it relatively well, hard removal, for example. But with that, it's like, how much do you just throw away into lowering health? I kind of maybe overdo it personally when I play because I just don't want to just die like that.
Yes.
And that happens like a kind of large amount of time. A minion's just left on the board alive. And your opponent's got like, what, 3-4 cards?
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, I hope he doesn't just get me this turn. And there's often not a lot you can do about it.
Yeah, and that situation was very sketchy because, let me be perfectly clear. I don't fault Bozzzton whatsoever for just saying, oh, there is a 5/6 there. I will kill the 5/6. I'll make him have something that makes the 2/7 kill me. That's totally reasonable thinking. I'm just saying that sometimes you do just have to really sit back and go through those motions.
Especially because he saw Shadow Visions into the Power Word Shield.
Yes.
So that's like, reduces down the odds, right? Because there's one Shadow Vision's gone, so there's one shooter effect, and he picked Power Word Shield, so you saw it.
Yes. Which means he did not pick Divine Spirit or Inner Fire.
Now it's going to be the Battle of the Paladins, but in a very different fashion than what we've been used to for a while, at least. Mm-hmm. What do you think of these Control Paladin decks?
I think they'll probably be at their best in these kinds of matchups that they're facing. We saw Hunterace be very successful previously, and I think actually a level of respect was given. I think his Paladin was banned in the last series.
Oh, really?
When he played against aggro, but it was greedy aggro. So it was, again, this kind of full aggro lineup, but there was Spellbreaker in every deck, Bitter Tide Hydras in there, like all kinds of like extra chunky things, Vicious Fledglings, like everything that you want to be able to beat up Control as aggro. And we spoke to him afterwards. He said, I felt okay, but obviously, things like Fledglings and so on were giving him a couple of extra percent. And he said, going up against Bozzzton now, it's kind of like the same thing, but a bit less greedy. So, I should be okay. Yeah. And that's the kind of matchup this Control Paladin is probably looking to deal with a little bit more so than the impossible to beat mages that we've seen it go up against so far.
It's crazy. It's absolutely. I know we were talking about off stream just about the mage versus Paladin matchup, and it's like, is it in a format where you are even remotely expecting Control mages? Should you just put Beardo in there and maybe a couple of burglars?
Couple of burglar bullies?
Yep. OTK some horsemen?
I mean, how much N'Zoth Control Mage did you expect to go up against, would be my counter question, though.
Well, my response to that is it really just the N'Zoth version that's a problem?
I think it's a bigger problem.
I agree.
Yeah.
But does the Alana sort of more standardized Frostlit Chainer Mage is still as much of a problem? There's still all the removal in there.
Right, but the Alana Mage, you can maybe set out a fatigue game plan, I don't know, or just try and set out a game plan where at least your Equality Consecration does the job, right? Like, Alana comes down, true. That's the threat, you've dealt with it. The problem with the N'Zoth Mage is that you had to Equality, like, the Syndragosa board, then you had to Equality the N'Zoth board, then the Medivh came out, you had to Equality that board as well. Like, it was all kinds of insanity, and just the clears weren't there for the Paladins.
I think the matchup can get hard, because I just think Jaina just beats Uther. In terms of, like...
Probably right.
Also, as well, just because of the freeze effect. But anyway, let's get back to this Paladin mirror. Dirty Rat always feels a little bit risky this early on. This could reasonably be a hero power pass turn. Nothing too fancy for Hunterace.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he doesn't... I mean, Rat on 2 is a highly contentious play, and it's kind of a gimmick, and generally it's something that you want to be doing when your hand needs a gimmick. Like, Hunterace absolutely doesn't. He already has a Plated Beetle, and now, yeah, sure, he just hero powered this turn, but now he curves Tar Creeper into Call to Arms. Yep. Like, he can just fight card for the board right now.
He potentially Rats on 4.
There is no... That's very true. There's no need for him to just, slam a Dirty Rat, and then suddenly Finger hits the board, and there's just a complete mess.
Yeah, I think if the opening was any more aggressive from Bozzzton, it's more of a consideration.
Right.
Because although the Rat pulls a minion, the Rat probably kills the 1-drop and 2-drop.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, a swing? Just to deal the 1 damage to that Plated Beetle. It's going to feel like a bit of a win there for Hunterace, to be completely honest. Yeah. Beetle's got a lot of value. Good old Tar Creeper. A consistently good 3-drop taunt.
Yes.
It's just good. There's just no messing about. It's simple, but great. Righteous Protector coming off from the Call to Arms is exactly where you want it to come from. It's not often you want that to drop on 1, or to draw it, of course. And this is actually a nice setup for a potential War Leader if the trades are required. Or even just feel a little bit longer and have Finge on the board. And maybe the Murlocs survive a bit longer.
Yeah, he is missing the Megasaur, of course, which is always vital in these kinds of matchups because, along with Cold Light Seer, Megasaur is what makes your boards resilient to removal. You know, you can get the Divine Shields to play around the hard removal effects. The soft removal effects. You can get plants to play around the hard removal effects. Like all kinds of different ways to make your board more and more resilient. But yeah, Call to Arms, right back at you, buddy. Mine's not bad either. No second Dirty Rat though is what Hunterace is probably having a little bit of a grimace about right now.
Having the Pyro just on the board isn't bad though.
It's true.
Allows you to just an easy consecrate. And yes, it's two like equality tools, but still, if you clear the board early on, you won't need those equality tools as much later on. Mm-hmm. And the fact that he's just ahead on board versus the aggro deck is kind of nuts.
Yep.
He's getting to the point where he has a Pyro consecrate in hand, which means that if emergency requires, he can just do the 3 consecrate from hand anyway. Mm-hmm. And also has the Aldor Peacekeeper for anything that gets a bit too crazy. Maybe even just a Megasaur, to be honest. I think Bozzzton does have to very strongly consider Finger and trade into the Pyromancer here. I feel like everything else, you're just falling behind.
Yeah. Especially now that he's started to make trades already, that seems to be where his mind is, because he had a War Leader play available to him, but obviously he wouldn't have been trading with the Murlocs first if he was going to go down that line. But he does take the value trade instead of trading into the Pyromancer, which I respect as well, because your 2-1 isn't of great value to you if Hunterace just decides to, activate his Pyromancer and kill the 2-1. If he's going to Equality to kill your Finger, well, that's fine also, right? Like, if you take Pyro Equality down with your Finger, you're chilling. You're perfectly happy about that. Just play him the board. He hasn't done anything particularly fancy yet in terms of having to clear out Bozzzton stuff. He's just played card for card, and he's way ahead right now. Of course, the Finger can change that very quickly.
And I think it's the power as well of played Beetle. Like a 2-3 early on just kind of beats a lot of the openings. And I don't mean strictly beats the minions, but the additional armor combined with the frustration of Bozzzton being a little bit slow is just a huge impact there. And then just Call to Arms has just created Paladin as a class again, to be completely honest.
Card is...
The fact it's played in control and aggro shows you how good that card is.
Right. Ouch.
This is not the tyranny you're really after. But it'll help him build some kind of a board. Gone are the days of War Leader buffing the Murloc, buffing Finger back up to keep him alive.
No.
Those were the dirty days. Wow, and now Spike Ridge Steed as option. Cairn as an option. Tyrion is waiting in the wings for a couple of turns. I think I normally prefer the Spike Ridge here, though.
Consecrate's kind of filthy here, right?
That is true.
Basically what we're saying, there's a lot of good plays this turn.
Yeah, so my argument for Spike Ridge is I like playing Spike Ridge as soon as I can.
Sure.
Because you're in a position to play it. You need that minion on the board. Mm-hmm. And you can still Spike Ridge, double trade, and that kills the Tarim because the 1 damage from the spell. And you'll trade off another Murloc as well, so it's not like you're punished in any way. You leave 1 Murloc on the board, so what?
Sure.
Actually, is Bozzzton playing Silence? It's Paladin. Let me check. He's playing 1 Spellbreaker.
It's even better, actually, than the... Obviously, the play's the same, but the trade sequence is slightly different from what you suggested. And it allows him to double value trade, keep the 3-1 Pyro on board, alongside the Spike Ridge minion. Hunterace again, just finding the little optimizations.
Look, I'm an ideas guy. Right? I come up with an idea. It's normally not completely terrible, but it can be improved upon, and that's what other people are for.
Gotcha. Megasaur's just not very scary.
Second Spy Ridged as well. I mean, enjoy your one Spellbreaker, friend.
Yes.
And Hunterace has just been beating Bozzzton on board all game.
Yep.
This is not how your aggro deck should perform.
No. It's Control Paladin looking much, much more impressive here. You know, we didn't see the hand that was just full of the 2-drops that you're just trying to tutor out from Call to Arms, as we saw previously. You know, the Call to Arms looked pretty pathetic in the series that you cast, to be perfectly honest. Where
well,
it
was pulled one Loot Hoarder
and then
nothing.
Yeah,
So...
exactly. You can see the power of it. Like, if you just are able to play a couple of minions and then play Call to Arms, you can go toe-to-toe with, you know, the best decks in the business in terms of
Are you bringing out bigger minions than your aggro bot? You bringing out dirty rats?
Yeah.
Also, Loot Hoarders often just trade just as well with it. You know, trade with a 2-drop, for example, because they're the heavily weighted attack over the health. And now, I mean, I feel like at this point, Hunterace can just drop whatever he wants. I was going to say, he could even consider Dirty Rat, see what happens, and at worst, he can just play Can. Like,
he's going to play, I think he's going to play everything else.
Oh,
just to minimize Divine Favor as a top deck, because that's like the one card, literally the one card that gives Bozzzton like 1% to win the game at this point.
It doesn't matter if there are quicker ways to win games. If you remove all of the ways your opponent can win, you will win eventually. It doesn't really matter.
The only thing that's made that a little bit ugly is the fact that that's a war leader, which now makes the onboard trades very awkward.
You can just double go into the war leader, right?
Right.
Depending on the secret, of course.
Yeah. Okay, this works too. This is the same number of cards spent as Loot Hoarder Pyromancer would have been.
Also, he holds the Pyromancer in case he does, in some world, need a quality to just hard clear the board. Because he could have done a better clear. Oh my god.
Thank you, game.
Could have been, what, 4 or 5 cards?
Yep.
It was 3.
Yep.
Difference between 2 cards is a lot more than the size of those 2 cards.
Kisses fingertips emoji.
And smiles. I think that's the biggest tell from Saul.
I just like seeing good play get rewarded. What do you want from me? Yep, there you go.
Another Call to Arms could have been nuts.
Mm-hmm.
Could have been the top card of the deck.
That's it, Hunterace. You just smile and look a bit smug. You deserve it. Is the greatest thing about that play is that, you know, part of playing around Divine Favor involved playing a Loot Hoarder, which would be nonsense in most scenarios because you could just trade into the Loot Hoarder and then pull Divine Favor, but everything else on the board had Taunt, so that Loot Hoarder was actually a card dump from the hand. Really cute. I like it.
Nice play.
Mm-hmm.
So we need Rusty to make a video on that. Rusty, if you're watching, get involved. Yeah, really just extremely solid player. I think that's what impresses me the most in any player that plays Hearthstone competitively. Is not, yes, there are some cute plays like that. There are some flashy plays, but just strong play throughout a tournament is very impressive to me. Very similar to Zump. Yeah, from DreamHack. He just played well every single game.
Yep, I made that exact same comparison last series.
Oh, really? Hunterace, I actually was. That wasn't even a copy.
No, I know you didn't hear it. I'm just literally pointing out. Yeah, our heads are in the same space for once.
Ooh.
I know. Am I becoming more like you, or are you becoming more like me?
Let chat decide. I don't know what's worse, to be honest.
We've just slid together and met in the middle somewhere. Yeah. But yeah, it's very impressive because, like you said, he's doing both, right? Like, he's not making mistakes, he's playing solid, but then there's the areas of creativity, like that Stranglethorn Tiger play, which, you know, I didn't see. I knew why he did it as soon as he did it, and I was like, yeah, that's really smart, but I wouldn't have seen the play beforehand, I don't think.
Yeah, it wasn't like an intuitive play,
right?
I think you could ask probably 100 Hearthstone players and maybe one other player, depending on that pool, would be like, oh yeah, you definitely do that.
Yeah.
Like, almost everyone else would be like, no, Meteor, go. It's going to be back on the zoo for Bozzzton, and now Bozton's got quite the ask of him. He has to go 3-0 versus Hunterace to win. And Hunterace only has to take a win with his Mage. And again, this is a full control lineup so far from Hunterace, to an extent, the Priest. But The way this deck often functions in any form of aggressive match is you make sure you don't die by turn 5 and then play Dragon's Fury.
How does Doomsayer into Tar Creeper sound? It's by not dying until turn 5.
Well, when you've got a Polymorph to back that up as well. Pretty good.
Okay.
Pretty good.
Good talk.
It's also a good card. And pass. Oh, and it's like the proactive Tar Creeper as well. It's just like, there's no even like quick attack onto it. You get to react first.
Yep. Yep.
Bozzzton,
pretty
even
much.
with the well played, he's like, well...
Bozzzton doing our job for us.
Yep.
That's everything we need to say for the rest of this game. Bozzzton can cast this series with emojis.
Oh my god.
You say emojis?
Yeah,
Because I just said the word emoji like 5 minutes ago. Uh-huh. One of the largest minions in your deck, you say?
It'll be fine. I mean, this does actually kind of kill the Tar Creeper over 2 turns. Did you just Doomsayer again?
I mean, you could also just polymorph, right? It's not ridiculous.
Yeah, but do you not want him to discard some cards?
Have we not established that this is fine if you discard cards off Howlfiend? You literally sat in a chair and did an interview about it.
Right. But there's no, we can see, there's no real discard synergy in hand. There's no imp on the board.
There's clutch.
Yeah, it's 1 card.
Yeah.
But yeah, you could also... Oh, is he actually going to ping Doomsayer?
He's going in.
I mean, look, Hunterace looks like he might do what I want him to do, so that means I'm
That's
better than
fair.
you. And I'm
yeah,
right.
I will definitely argue with you. I'm not going to argue with Hunterace.
There you go. So what I need to do next cast, wear a Hunterace mask and be like, Subtle, I think you're terrible. And you'd be like, yes, sir.
This does... what I will say is, like, Doomsayer or Polymorph were the 2 lines there. If you're going to play Doomsayer, pinging the Howlfiend makes sense. Because you might as well discard a card rather than not discard a card, right? Like, the downside is that it's Silverware Golem.
Yeah, and what I'll say as well is the Doomsayer... It's... I actually don't even know what you could even do to beat this Doomsayer with this turn. And that means that this Tyrant can just be played on 5, similar to the way the Tar Creeper was played.
Yeah, it's a great
At
point.
worst case.
Great point.
And then you have a 4/4 to trade into whatever Bozzzton plays, then Meteor, then Violence Portal. Like, at that point, you've drawn 3 more cards, and they're probably removal as well. And you just keep Bozzzton out of the game. So, Hunter... Oh my, he's going to this subtle school of annoying faces at that point. I do feel kind of bad for Bozzzton because this looks to be one of those blowout games, right? And it does happen.
Yeah.
Hearthstone, it's a card game. It's going to happen now and again. But there is very little Bozzzton could do about this situation right now, especially with that second Doomsayer. Never mind the first into Tar Creeper.
All right, 5 mana 4/4. Let's go.
And it looks like a bad play in isolation, but you're playing a 4/4 on the board when your opponent has nothing.
Right.
And not many of their minions have charge at this point, so I wouldn't be too surprised if we see the Soulfire actually this turn.
Particularly also because Hunterace is curving into Geist turn, so if you don't use it now, you might never get to use it.
Yeah, it's very true. God, Geist is everywhere, isn't it? It really is. It's nuts. And it's very funny the way the card went from initially everyone was like, oh, it just wrecks Jade Druid. And now it's gone from, it's not so much completely wins you a game, but it adds a percentage in a lot of matchups to a win.
Yeah, I think
it just adds a percentage.
Weirdly enough, I think Jade Druid actually has more game against Skulking Geist than a lot of other decks now at this point. If they can play like at least 1 Jade Idol and get the Jade count up, and then they play Aya and a Ultimate Infestation over the course of the game, like that's enough a lot of the time.
Can beat you up, yeah.
Right, whereas
Malfurion.
If you take Evolve and Unstable Evolution away from Shaman, if you take Inner Fire away from Combo Priest, like how are they winning? It's so tough at that point.
Clutch Weather did get discarded from that Soulfire though, and okay, so the Doomguard can guarantee the discard again on Clutch. Does drop the potion, but I think Bozzzton needs to just go.
Yes.
He can't just give Hunterace more time than he's already had.
If we get into a position where Hunterace can comfortably play a Medivh.
Yeah, exactly. You just... And he's not used any AoE yet. Apart, outside of Doomsayers, which are kind of AoE.
Right.
But no hard cast AoE spells yet. So this freeze, again, is getting good work done. The guy's not being able to remove the minion. Positioning good for Meteor as well. And there isn't any AoE.
No
hard AoE outside of Meteor.
Yep. No Dragon's Fury, no Flame Strike.
I wonder if this is actually just a polymorph turn. Just poly the Doomguard and ping the 2-1.
Poly ping. You have a 6/6 to deal with.
Well, yeah, then you have Meteor.
And then you have Meteor. Yeah.
Because again, Firelands doesn't beat it, right?
Right.
You can't ping next turn. And especially with the Jaina draw, you don't really care about Medivh that much anymore, right? It's more about just play Jaina. And if you Meteor, you pretty much have to Meteor the Doomguard, in which you kill nothing else.
Right.
Otherwise, you can remove, 6 power off the board instead and hold Meteor?
Is there ever a world where you play your curve and just played Firelands instead? And then next turn you have 2 large minions plus a Meteor plus a ping
That's
to contest
11,
the board?
though.
Is 11.
That'll be 11 power left on board. Bozzzton's really good at lining up these discard effects. He is really good at it.
Wow. This game has flipped on its head. We were memeing. Bozzzton. Bozzzton was memeing.
He memed himself.
Yeah.
And Hunterace was being a smug, smiley person as well. Not so smiley now. I'm saying this like I dislike Hunterace. I actually think Hunterace is awesome. It's just someone's got to go against you, basically. So that's a 8/8. Yep. 2 mana 8/8. Everyone complained about the 4 mana 7/7. They're overloaded.
Yeah, you're dead. You're just a bit dead.
Dragonfire.
Raven Familiar into Blizzard?
Or Dragonfire. Dragon Fury.
Yeah.
And it has to be a Dragon Fury for 7. Because he can't ping as well if it hits the 6 for the Doomguard.
Well, it's not good enough anymore, right? If he Dragon's Fury and hits 7, then the 8/8's alive.
No, he uses Geist.
How?
Oh, well, Geist dies. Yeah, it's just bad. Never mind. Look, I've cast a lot of long marriage today, so...
Oh, don't give me those excuses, Raven.
It's not an excuse, it's more of just...
Lorinda will be mad. You're going to check your phone after this series and Lorinda's going to be mad at you.
That was just a statement.
Okay, fair enough. But nonetheless...
And I was about to follow up with, and it's no excuse.
fair. Quite unbelievably, though, Bozzzton found his way out of that game with his tournament life still intact, because that looked about as over as any game we've seen so far this tournament. And we've seen a few games that have looked over on turn 2 or turn 3.
Yeah, just the complete lack of... Well, Dragon Fury is so important in any aggro matchup. To the extent where I've kept it a lot of the time because you cannot rely on going Doomsayer, Tar Creeper, Doomsayer. You cannot rely on that. Whereas you can rely on 5 mana or turn 5 or 4, depending on coin, clear the board. That is way more reliable. So yeah, he's not made it work there, but Hunterace has got plenty of goes at taking this series as Bozzzton moves on to his Paladin again.
Minion into Doomsayer into clear the board on 5, you said?
This is more like it. And with the follow-up as well with Meteor is huge.
Yep.
Because normally after that Dragon Fury, if the board's clear, 1 to 2 minions come down as a max. If 2 minions come down, Meteor often kills them both. If 1 comes down, Meteor definitely kills it.
Now, conventional wisdom tells you coin Doomsayer against Murloc Paladin back in the day when Doomsayer decks were being played against Murloc Paladin. Because if you wait until turn 2, they can generate too much power and then they beat your Doomsayer. I was going to ask... The question is, does that still apply in this new school mage deck where you have Coin Dragon's Fury available to you, potentially?
I was actually going to say that I'm completely okay with Coin Dragon Fury because you still can just pass this turn. You still play Doomsay, which heals you to a certain aspect because it has to be traded into, or the Doomsay goes off sometimes as well, which is just as good. And then you can just wait till he overloads the board going into turn 4 or 5, and then just coin it out. I think that's fine. But because you have 2/2 drops, that makes Doomsay a coin better.
Yes.
Because you have a follow-up, not just ping pass.
Yeah. I definitely would have coined the Doomsayer if I was thrust into this position, just because I know historically that was correct. You coined Doomsayer against Murloc Paladin. I would just rely on that knowledge, but I don't have a ton of experience of Big Mage. You've played a lot more of this deck than I have.
Yeah, the Archanologist pushes it over the edge.
Yeah, I can definitely see that.
But also, it's just the rest of the hand as well, the flexibility of Polymorph and Dragon Fury.
Yeah. I would say Polymorph doesn't really curve the way you'd want it to if it's going to be your turn 4 play. Like, obviously, turn 3 Ice Block now is potential, but now with the War Leader, we might be seeing a ping instead. Your Polymorph doesn't interact particularly well with the likely play on turn 4 from Paladin, which is Call to Arms, right? So that's where you can sometimes get a little bit stuck with this curve.
Only the Righteous Protector.
Sure. Yeah.
As opposed to just pinging it.
Yeah, exactly. 4 mana, ping a Divine Shield, and remove Taunt.
But Polymorph does help in the fact that it's a low-cost spell out of your deck.
That is true.
So it makes your Dragonfire stronger, yet more reliable.
Yeah, and of course the Archanologist having drawn the Ice Block as well is a very big deal. That'll do. Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, great. Even Ice Block would have really been the end of the world this turn, just to get it live on a turn where you're not really taking tons of damage. You still thinking about ping?
I'm thinking about pinging the Divine Shield, yes, because...
Or polymorphing it.
What is scary to you this turn? It's Blessing of Kings, right? But I guess the Tar Creeper is better in the world where Blessing of Kings doesn't come down, and when Blessing of Kings does come down, it pings the Divine Shield for you.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Tar Creeper is better in the world where Blessed Kings does come down. Because it does the job.
Right. It's the same thing in the world.
Yeah. As well as blocking this damage. Yeah. There we go. There's a team.
Mm-hmm.
And now this is the scary moment. How much do you commit?
Yeah.
It does have them all. Which is pretty huge. Just to refresh some Divine Shields.
Let me think.
So here he wants to buff one of the Murlocs, trade both, well, Divine and then Purify. Purify is more, sorry.
It doesn't work though, right? Like, I mean, not as well as you'd like it to.
Well, you have 2 Murlocs Divine Shielded and the one.
Right. You trade with the 2/2 and the weapon, and then attacking with the Righteous Protector first. Yeah, this makes sense. I was searching high and wide for a way to just have maxed Divine Shields that turn, but it's definitely not there. This is the best you can do.
That is the maxed Divine Shields.
Right.
But
that's the other way of putting it, yeah.
Which is very good still. 3 out of 4
fantastic.
minions
Yeah,
versus Dragon's Fury is amazing. Saronite Chain Gang, a card you very often don't see on this list.
Yes.
But it is always been that solid, annoying card.
Yeah, and I told you I was making the Zump comparison in the previous series. This is the kind of thing that sparked it, because this is what Zump was doing with his Warlock. Like, he had Stonehill Defenders and Saronite Chain Gangs and so on.
It was Control Warlock,
in his Control Warlock. And instead of, every turn we'd be looking at it like, yeah, this is a good Hellfire. This is a good Defile. This is a good Twisting Nether. Zump went, nope, this is a good play a Stonehill Defender, pick a 2-mana Taunt, and play that as well.
It was so sick.
Yeah. And he would just play more and more annoying taunts until his opponent was just sick of being alive.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Zump might have, if this is a record, we can one day find out. He drew the most Twisting Nethers, cast the least Twisting Nethers, whilst winning the most games. Because it's not like he didn't cast Twisting because he lost.
Right. Lorinda, there you go. That's the stat.
Yeah.
Get on it.
Yeah. Let's level up these stats, Lorinda.
And it's going to work out perfectly here because against, this tactic of stalling for time with Divine Shield so that Dragon's Fury can't hit you, well, putting a Taunt minion in the way every turn just kind of counteracts that because you're stalling for time as well. And eventually Bozzzton just has to, get the value trades with his own Divine Shield, start removing them themselves. Now you've got Blizzard to try and take care of the problem as well. And now suddenly we're back in the spot where Dragon's Fury is just fantastic in any given situation again.
To the extent where, oh no, this can't even be, can it? I was wondering whether this is ever like you consider Redemption hero power pass, but then you can't hero power because ping messes you up with the Redemption.
I mean, Redemption doesn't do a great deal anyway because they can always ping after the Dragon's Fury anyway, right? Like, so a 2-1 comes back, whatever /1 comes back. But yeah, you get the...
But if it hits for 5, it's the Protector.
Yes, you get the Protector back, so you at least have like...
And I mean, purely for hero power Tarim the turn after. But that, again, that's a big ask, actually, for that to even play out like that, never mind anything else. And here's the silence. Already seen one Doomsayer, so this is just a silence of, I want damage and I want something on the board to pressure. Nice timing of the secret as well. Guys there would have destroyed it. Here we go. Ooh. That is actually just about good enough. Because you can ping off the 5-1.
Yep. And that was why you don't ping first, by the way, in case anyone was thinking that, because if you ping first and you then low roll the polymorph, then there's a 5-1 on the board. By waiting afterwards, yes, there's a 2-1 on the board instead of a 1-1 that would have been redeemed the other way around, but you remove that possibility from the equation.
Does this have to be just hero power time?
Is anything else good enough?
I think I've pushed enough damage. You can always follow up with
everything else and then try and Tarim everything the next turn. That's kind of flimsy, right?
Yeah, if it gets wiped, then good Tarim. Yeah. But at least this is 3 damage now, and maybe 3 to 6 damage afterwards. You've got to imagine 1 dies, or the Tarim dies or something this turn.
This Tarim is in the wrong place. Tarim should have been played to the left. Because of exactly that reason.
Okay.
It means that you have to, when you meteor the Tarim, you don't get, a Dirty Rat minion doesn't get caught in it as well.
But, just to play devil's advocate.
Go on.
It does protect the Murloc.
That's true. No, that's fair.
So, if you draw Megasaur,
it
doesn't have Dirty Rat.
That's fair. You're right.
Because my mind went straight to protecting the Murloc, and yours went straight to Dirty Rat, so I was like, when our powers combine, we see all angles. But obviously, unfortunate, the Dirty Rat does pull it always on the right. One more go. Got it. Pretty nice, that, just to get rid of the Dirty Rat in a clean fashion. Otherwise, suddenly you lose the Juggler, lose some extra damage. Gets a little bit annoying after that.
What spells does Hunterace have left at this point? He hasn't played any Firelands portals, right?
Yeah, so he has 2 Firelands portals, 1 Meteor.
1 Flame Strike, 1 Meteor, 1 Blizzard. He plays double Blizzard, right?
Yes.
Okay. I'm just thinking of the likely, Raven Familiar into an AoE that clears this board is what I'm looking at.
1 Dragon Fury.
1 Dragon's Fury. There you go. Sure.
Perfecto.
Drawing Firelands portal there would have been a little bit of a problem for him, but he had high odds of hitting an AoE.
And even then, he can at least take out, the War Leader.
Yeah.
And maybe get a taunt or whatever. I'm surprised it took Hunterace that long. Guaranteed a clear.
Yeah.
Because at minimum, there's Polymorph.
I was going to say, if there's one thing I'm sure of, is that he's 100% playing Artificer after this comes down. this does a lot for him. Again, it's one more card cut off Divine Favor if Divine Favor is top decked. It's a minion that can't really be killed unless a weapon is drawn. If a weapon is drawn, you are winning this game.
Yeah, I was going to say you are okay.
And then Frostlich Jaina comes down. Of course, you have an Artificer already front-loaded on the board, which gives you, again, upside behind
it. It is a weird situation where you play a minion, and if your opponent can answer your minion, you win.
Yeah.
It's a very odd scenario to think about, but it's kind of true. And even the +1 heal. Ooh.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. When it's front-loaded, and then you have Frostlich Jaina, and then, yeah, you boop them for 1. Great.
Boop. And now, welcome to Pingtown.
Mm-hmm.
Population Hunterace. And the problem here is as well, this isn't control paladin. You can't just not hero power.
Right.
Like you can't, because control paladin would just be like, I'm just not pressing this button until I get Uther.
Right.
Nope, you don't get that as Murloc paladin. You have to go for it.
And I have no cards in my hand, so if I don't hero power, what am I doing with my life?
Oh, okay.
Don't Raven, you know why. Don't ask me that question. I saw that
Ask
face.
you what question?
Why he was meteoring a little Murloc.
No. I was initially thinking about why he pinged the 1/1.
Okay. Gotcha.
And not the Murloc. But then if he's playing Meteor, then yes, of course, it doesn't really matter. But what does matter is Hunterace is going to be moving on and the first finalist for HCT Germany. And can't really argue with his performance so far. Extremely solid, extremely spot on. And I also called him in my interview that I thought Hunterace was going to take it. So seems good.
He has played incredibly well throughout. His lineup looks very, very strong. I don't know how much of that is him running into the aggressive decks in both of his knockout round matches so far.
Hello,
but it's been a fantastic performance so far. And congratulations!
Congratulations on the win. Did that feel as easy as it looked on your end?
I drew pretty well those games. I have to be honest. Lineup-wise, I was super favored going into it. I think like all of the matchups are like in general or. Like, they are all favored, so sometimes it just happens to go that way.
Okay, and in the matchup versus Zoo, were you feeling very, very confident?
I was
We were.
99% sure I was winning that game.
We were like, oh yeah, it looks like it's just going to be, a really strong sweep for... Wait, what happened?
Suddenly Doomguard into... And I also missed all my AoE, so I don't know what happened there.
Yeah.
I like Dean that start with like double Doomsayer, Power Gripper, him slamming out the well played.
Yep, well played.
Right.
How do you feel about your potential opponents in the finals? Is there someone you would like to face out of the two that left?
I've been practicing a lot with Glacier for different tournaments, and I've known him for a long time, so I really like to face him. I think I also want to face him in terms of lineup because I'm not that too keen on getting Bozzzton for.
I mean, me neither, Hunterace. Me neither. I'm not a huge fan. So, how's the event been for you? Because we've seen you at a few other events, but what's it like being at the? You've qualified for this one. It's turned up. It's the first HCT event of the year. You've been having a good time.
Yeah, I'm definitely having a good time. Like the play area here at Take TV is like insane.
Right.
You get to like chill out and hang with all the other players. There's like no stress about it. Play a game every 5th hour. Just play some Hearthstone, chill, relax. It's really awesome.
It's all we ever want. But I'll let you have a bit of a break and prepare for the finals. But congratulations again.
Thanks.
Great job.